Vegas. It's lined with potholes for Warrington. First game of the year, the first team of the 8 playing Allegiant Stadium to have a match in 2025, and they were beaten by championship team Widnes 36-22. It was 22-12 shortly after half-time, and then they just went on a run, Widnes. Very young Warrington side, most of the stars missing. Dan Russell made his debut, so did Ollie Leyland, but a disappointing result for Sam Burgess. But the big news in rugby league in this part of the world right now is Salford, special measures, and the fact that they have to shed players, being ordered to sell players. So with more on that big story, here is Mark Baisley.
Well, Steve, there have been various reports about financial issues at Salford throughout the off-season, but on Wednesday, the club finally put out a statement. It was entitled "The Truth About the Rumours," and it laid out the situation that Salford currently find themselves in. Now, there was a meeting of Super League clubs on Tuesday, and with the RFL as well. The things that here's some of the key lines that came out. Salford have been given a sustainability cap of 1.2 million by the RFL, so that's where they have to get that down to. That means they've been, and to quote from their statement, directed to sell players without delay. Obviously, that means the other Super League clubs will be able to come in for those. They have been given dispensation on their caps to bring in Salford players should they desire to. In terms of Salford's situation, though, they have received an advance in around $500,000 in central funding. However, as a condition of that, they have to be placed in special measures, and that means they have to reduce overheads of around £800,000. Now, part of the reason these issues have come about is partly to do with their lack of income. We all know that there's been issues around trying to get the ground sorted, the sale of that to Salford Council, making sure they get the lease, that they can better monetise the facilities there. So they've struggled with that in the off-season in the past. There was also an issue that they flagged in their statement that they put out this week about some money they're expecting to be advanced from Salford City Council, some funding, which they were then told towards the end of last year would not be coming through. They did say as well, though, that talks with investors have been on, with potential investor or over potential investment, have been ongoing. So they took place over last weekend. They're continuing at the minute. They say they can't go into any more detail on that because of a non-disclosure agreement. So I'm sure for everyone associated with Salford and indeed the wider Super League community will be hoping that comes to a conclusion soon. We do have some good news on that front, that they are going to get some investment. Worth noting as well, we're less than a month away from the start of the Super League season. It doesn't get much tougher for Salford in terms of their first game of the year. They're away to St Helens on February the 15th. What sort of squad they'll have out then, who knows? They are playing a pre-season friendly against Barrow Raiders on this Saturday, sending a squad of mostly reserve team players to that one, which I don't know if you read too much into that. They probably would have only done that anyway against the Championship club. But even so, with what's going on and with them having to sell players, that's probably something that's piqued a lot of people's interest. Just on the players, they've obviously got some big name assets. We've seen a few go in the past. We've obviously seen how they've struggled to hold on to some, or haven't been able to hold on to some players, had to sell them. Obviously, Brodie Croft going to, and Andy Akers going to Leeds were a couple of big ones previously. Probably their biggest name at the minute that's still on the books, Mark Sneed, Man of Steel nominee, halfback, who's been a huge part of the success they've had there under Paul Rowley since he went to the club. Key man in their run to their fourth place in Super League last year, which saw them qualify for the playoffs against expectations. He's been linked with a return to his old club Hull FC. Lee Leopards are supposedly circling around him as well. Another player Lee Leopards have been rumoured to be looking at is Joe Shorrocks. And as far as other players go, Dion Cross, the centre/winger, he's been linked with a move to Hull FC too. And Castleford Tigers have been linked with a move for Jack Ormondroy. It's obviously still very early days. We don't know what's going on. We'd imagine that a lot of other players might be on the move soon. They'll probably be news of that, if not over the weekend, then at next week at some point. And of course, the other thing is while Salford have had to get their cap down to 1 point, this sustainability cap, as the RFL term it, as 1.2 million, does mean until they do that, they can't register any other players as well. So tough times at Salford at the minute. I'm sure everybody in the rugby league community wishes them well, and yeah, let's hope they're able to put out a competitive team against St Helens come that season opener on February the 15th.
Thanks, Mark, for that report. And yes, a 36-22 defeat for Warrington, first step to Vegas, and they stumbled. But all the first team squad pretty much were missing tonight. And Coach Richard Marshall, he said one player who impressed him and impressed me as well here at Halliwell Jones Stadium was Ollie Leyland, the great man from the London Broncos.
I think Ollie's, he's played near on 100 Super League games. He's still only a young half-back, and he's got all the exuberance and cockiness of a half, and his kicking game's really good.
I also asked Richard how many players will travel to Las Vegas with the Wolves.
Minute, about 22, probably, 22, 23. But yeah, that's obviously round 3. We're not too concerned about that at the minute.
So how many positions are blokes fighting for positions on the plane? And they know that, they feel that way.
Yeah, I think I think when Sam Burgess is obviously the head coach, and there is no position that's set in stone at the club. There's a couple of players who are internationals who've had a break, and it'll be in and around that first team 100%. But there's probably several spots up for grabs, and that's what these games are for. To have a look at what we've got coming through.
So that's it here from the Halliwell Jones Stadium, a surprise defeat to Warrington. But again, this was a team of fringe first graders, and they were fighting for a spot on the plane to Las Vegas, and maybe some of them didn't do as much as they would have liked to tonight to guarantee themselves that trip across the pond. Okay, one more thing before we go, and thanks for that report again, Mark, is Jay Field. Now, I spoke to Jay Field at the Wigan Media Day, and I asked him about his future, if he wanted to retire in the UK or if he wanted to finish his career here in the UK. I had in the back of my mind that he had a long-term contract. I wasn't quite sure. That's why I phrased the question that way. I guess it was my job to know exactly how long his contract was. But anyway, his answer to the question, which you're about to hear, surprised a lot of people because, in fact, he actually was announced as extending his stay at the Brick Community Stadium for 4 years, only 1 year ago. So we'll finish tonight's report with Jay Field when asked about his future.
Yeah, I'm not too sure really. I've only got this year sort of left, and then see what happens after that. But I'm open to anything. Obviously, my partner's Australian as well, so obviously if something come up to go home, you'd obviously think about it. But obviously you're leaving here also, which is a great club. So you got to weigh things up when the time comes, I guess.
You got an agent in Australia, have you, working for you? Who are you with?
I'm with Dave Riolo.
Oh, Dave Riolo, cool. So I guess that's something in the second half of the season, and Vegas is, I guess, a stage in that regard, isn't it?
Yeah, potentially, for sure. So you just got to, each time you go out there, put your best foot forward.